conversation of why you think you're right, and none of these people, you know, are really digging down into the book. And what I mean by that is, like I said, start at the beginning. We've got people out there that think it's in Kansas, in Idaho, in frickin' Timbuktu, and I think a lot of these people are, maybe they just have to be right, and so it just changes the conversation, which, like you said, I see so much of this shit, and it's like I have to control myself from even comment on half the stuff. And once you comment, though, you fall into that trap, right? Because now you're arguing a point that's probably pointless. And so I look at all this shit and I laugh and I just leave it alone. But there's very few people, I think, in this hunt that actually can pull the information and talk intelligently about it,
Mm-hmm.
and not having to be right. Oh no, this is what I think, and this has to be this, and this has to be that. It has to be nothing, right?
No, I know it's again like, and we all don't come from the same backgrounds, the same education levels,
Yeah,
so we have to always keep that in mind. And I want to be kind because I'm not known for that, but I want to be a little more kinder to people in the sense that, like, yeah, I'm gonna give you some grace,
yeah.
and understanding that maybe you don't get everything we're saying, and we could break it down and we can walk you through this. But at that point, when you decide, like, we're having a conversation with, I'm not sure who what was the guy's name on our Discord, the secret, was it treasure hunter or treasure finder, whatever.
Yeah,
And I don't know who this guy is yet. But like when he's saying to me, like, the coordinates don't matter, and I'm like, okay, you can't
yeah.
say that and then gloss over it and not address it either.
Well, see, and here's part of the ignorance about, like, looking at the information in the front of the book. The front of the book tells you, I don't know, time and time again, it gives you cardinal directions. It's calling out north, it's calling out south. So it's giving you, a point on a compass somewhere. Well, if we're going to look for a point on compass somewhere in today's world, we could look at a map, and the maps today or back then have grids, right? You
Hmm.
can figure out your location from coordinates. And it's like, to me, people miss that part of the book. They're
That's
not
insane.
understanding that information that's given. It's not given you directly, but it's given to you, right? And if you look at the first two images in the book, or in that section, the first two images, San Francisco and Charleston, they both have coordinates in the hair.
Hmm.
So you already got a pattern started for you.
Hmm.
And so when people ignore that, it's like, okay, we're kind of done with this conversation unless you can circle back and understand how we got there, you know. But
Yeah.
like you said before, I'm I hate thumb typing. I'd rather have a conversation because I can fit in more about talking than me trying to type, you know. And by the time you type, three other people have chimed in, and you've already lost your train of thought. So
Oh,
to
dude.
me, I hate that part.
I remember in the heyday when we was in the in George's group, and that group was like extremely large and popular, especially in the day. I don't think there was like there wasn't as many groups 5 6 years ago as there is today,
Yeah,
obviously.
no, no.
And I remember like it was so hectic that I had to like battle 7 8 people at the same time in like a really heated argument. And by the time I'm
Yeah,
answering one, like the next one is replying, and it was like it was chaos. And I was like, I can't
that's
balance this out. This is a lot.
that's yeah, that's too much chaos. But like you said, I like this idea where you can actually, if we structure it in a general essential way of, like, this is what we're going to talk about. We're not going to talk about, you know, image 9 right now. We're talking about the front of the book. We're going to stay on point. And I think if that happens, we're going to make progress.
I think we can because I think we can, and I think it'll be entertaining because I don't think anybody's really done that. I don't think anybody, and especially like in the format of like us speaking in a conversation, and we'll broadcast it, and you know we'll get an edited video at some point,
Yeah.
so we could just leave it on YouTube for somebody else that wants to like dive into it, and they already have it there. But nobody's really done that. I think at best, like I remember, if you know who Jason is, Jason Olsen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Jason, we always make fun of him because we make him make charts. He was really good at making charts, you know. So we told him, we was like, yo, we need, yeah. Well, we was like, make a chart of like, especially like the story part of it. So we have to make like all the mythical creatures that are referenced. Where are they from?
Yeah.
An important part of the book where I don't think people really like realize what's going on is that. So when they left the old land to come to the new land, not all of them took separate boats. Some of them went in the same boat to one place, and they all landed in that one place, right?
Right.
Who are they? Which groups? Where did they land? And from where they landed, which ones left and which ones didn't, and why? You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's such an interesting part that will like help out people who especially have this problem of accepting the cities that are there.
Yeah.
Because we got
Yeah, I think
we got two really good intelligent guys that I talk to a lot, and we agree on a lot of things, but then they'll tell me something like, I don't agree on the city, and I'm like, fuck. Okay.
Then all that work just went out the window.
Yeah, exactly. And it's but then this is the hard part is that I can't really prove to them that the cities are correct because there is no system of doing that. So I can make good arguments and I can like have this, that, and the other to show them, but I really am not like, there's no, okay, how do you wed image to verse? This is like one of the discussions that we were supposed to have live. It's not, there's no system. There's no like one thing fits all system of doing that.
What's crazy about that is that in the Litany of the Jewels, right, we get the pairing, and that is simple as fuck. It's like 1-to-1, right?
Uh-huh.
You got the word pearl, find it in the image, you got your connection. That's fucking easy. The verse part, though, that's where this puzzle, I think, falls apart, or we haven't found what we're supposed to connect. Is it a word? Is it a person? Is it man? Is it like, this is where, you know, we start to open up all these theories and ideas, because there isn't a set thing. It's not as clear as the litany.
No,
so it makes conversation tough.
It definitely does. And again, I think the book will clear up some of that, and then I think we have to be wise on how we transition from the book to get it, because I mean, I guess right after we get through the book, which is going to take some time, then we have to really get to the part of what we're speaking of, wedding verse and image and city, because I think people forget this part is it's not just putting the verse to the image. That would be pretty fucking impossible. There's no way you could do that. Maybe like 1 or 2 verses have something that just pops, like the Boston verse has that Paul Revere theme, so you would automatically think it's Boston, but how would you think it's that image? You couldn't. So what I had suggested to somebody was that getting image to city is pretty easy, especially with the coordinates, right?
Oh, yeah.
But then,
Totally.
so the point would be not to get image and verse connected, is to get city and image connected, and then once you know all the cities, you can easily match the verse to those respected cities. You know what I mean? So now that you only have 12 options because of the 12 images that put you towards 12 cities, now you have to figure out which of them belong to which. Some of them are going to be easier, and some of them are I can't give you an explanation. Like it's a very hard one with New York. Unless you know the Japanese clue and the history behind it, there's nothing there that like Indies native is the only thing that is like, okay, that's something I remember from like early history classes. Indies native being, you know, Hamilton. But we can't really get there organically that easy. So Trying to explain that to people is going to be a hoot.
Yeah. And that's where, these conversations start to, fizzle out, is we have something concrete with the litany, but then, the argument with the verses to the cities, that's where a lot of, frustration pops in, because we don't have an exact system, kind of like how we pair the gem to the immigration. That's given to us basically pretty easily.
Yeah, but I think people have to also, like, this is where, like, we have to have what do they call that? Reasonable deduction. We have to have these abilities to discern which is a more likely scenario than the other and why. And we have to do
Right.
that, using as much logic as possible. So, like, for the example of New York, if somebody was like, well, how do you know the New York versus nothing in there? And they're like, look, the Japanese clue when it points to Rhapsodic Man being a composer, and then the speculation widely being Gershwin, and then the fact that Byron Price obviously did admire Gershwin, as per the conversations with the JJP and Ben Askren, who knew Byron much better than any of us will. That was
Right.
something that came out, and more so that Byron wrote a book right after The Secret. I think it was in like '85. It was something. I forgot the title of it. It was something about. Weirdly, it was about playing with words. It was like. It was like an urban
Yeah.
dictionary.
Yeah. It's the Urban Dictionary.
Right, and then there was that one chapter had everything to do about the Gershwin brothers, and I was like, okay,
Yeah.
like so that seems a good obvious clue, right? And then the Indies natives is another one, and then what was the other one that I always point out? I can't remember. It's Gershwin. Yeah, that's as far as I'll go, because then you go deeper into that verse and it's very speculative.
Right. I don't know. I think, when you take the approach of not starting in the front of the book, um, there's a lot that I think that we can pull out of the front of the book. I kind of look at it like this. I've kind of changed my mindset about the puzzle and how to connect this. I look at as the cast's like a dead body, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I almost treat it like
A
a
cold
murder
case.
scene. I'm huge into that stuff, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking, why not take that approach to this? I mean, we got some facts, we got some evidence, we know some part of it, so let's start using the facts in these cases,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's where I'm looking at it, like, where are the facts? And let's stick with those facts.
Mm-hmm.
Because once we get off the facts, then we start, having that conversation. Well, I can talk you into this, or you can talk me into that, but the facts are the facts. So what can we pull out of the front of the book that's actual factual information that we can use that nobody can argue, right? And I think that's kind of where my mindset is.
No, I agree with that 100%, because that's exactly, I mean, that's exactly how things should be done. And I always say this to people, that if you're first, because a lot of people will do this, and I was just talking to my nephew. We started this was like 7, 8 years ago, and we did exactly what everybody else that I'm criticizing would do. You look at the
Yeah.
image and you stare at it for fucking months, drive yourself crazy, and then you see. I remember back in the days, there was this guy that looked at the the New Orleans image, and he said, "I see 1,000 wolf heads."
Oh yeah.
And I was like, but this is what happens, If you stare at this long enough, you will see.
Yeah.
It's like your mind is playing tricks on you, and you can't tell the person that. You can't. So I always tell people, don't use an image match to base your whole theory on. Because an image match, even if you were correct, could be 6 miles away, or it could be 5 feet away. How the fuck would you know? So now we
Right.
have to go. So, like, that's the worst way to do it. The verses, and that's why I keep telling people, I'm like, and I don't think I'm framing it well when I say it's literal, but the verses are more concrete. The verses are more objective. There's not that many options with these words. You know what I mean? You can't keep twisting them around and meaning different things, because then, the possibilities are endless. But when you look at it exactly for what it is, there's not that many possibilities. And the verses are not talking about the whole city as the image is. The verses are talking about that one little area where the cask is. That's it.
Yeah, yeah.
And we've already
There
done
might
we've
be a,
already done all the work to get to the cities. We've done most of the work to like pair images with verses, whether people believe it or not. Like all the hard work is kind of done. So only thing that's left is like to really decipher the verses, and I think people make it so much more difficult than what it is.
oh yeah, for sure, because they go down their rabbit hole, and it just becomes almost like it's non it's a non-arguable portion for people. Like this is it, this is it. Like I don't know.
No, I mean, look, when somebody is dug in on the position of things, I don't like. It's not that I don't expect them to change. Some people definitely. Some people there's no hope for them. Which is
Yeah,
weird. This is another weird observation. It might make me sound chauvinistic. I don't care. It's usually the women. The women in this
yeah.
treasure hunt are quite batshit crazy.
Oh, but they're to them they're absolutely right.
Dude, you
Like
can
you can't
never.
tell
Oh
any
my.
of them.
You can never take
Like,
it away from them. It's impossible. It's like this lady the other day, yesterday I think it was. I literally went to bed after I turned off my computer because of that comment. I was like, no, I'm done. She said maybe Allah B means take the subway to Brooklyn. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah,
whoa,
it's all right. Nobody thinks like I do. And I'm like, okay. Oh.
you're like that. How do you even wrap around that comment?
I can't, and that's why,
Yeah,
and I'm like, and look, if you're gonna say something like that, back it up. Tell me why you think that. Tell me, and if even if I did that with certain people, especially people like her, it would just end up like, well, I disagree, and that's it, And it's like, okay, fine. I mean, I just don't know where to go from here. It's like I can't teach you, or I can't push you in the right direction, or I can't like.
right.
I'm trying to make a compelling argument to your rational side, but I can't find your rational side.
Yeah, yeah,
That's a problem.
yeah. And I think like you said, a lot of people. I mean, what is it? 15,000 plus in all these groups. A lot of it is new people, right? So people that have been around, like you said, around the block, have heard every freaking scenario. They've heard all the BS, and it's still people come up with new BS, but okay, whatever. And I think that's where it gets frustrating, is because you gotta you gotta lead these people down the path that is most likely right than all of these crazy crackpot theories that come out. And and again, it goes back to having a conversation. It's like I see so many of this. It's like I want to chime in, but I know I ain't gonna get anywhere because like you haven't done the homework. You got to go back. You gotta check your facts.
Hmm.
Know what you're talking about.
So which puzzle is the one that you're most interested in? Because I'm sure everybody has like that one that you know is closest to
Yeah,
their heart.
I so San Francisco was the puzzle that I've been most involved in. I'm only like 30 minutes away from the city, so for me, that's the one I'm mainly working on. I've worked on all the other ones, but um, I do like the New York puzzle. That would be my second go-to. But in that puzzle, I'm just as lost.
So where's your
I mean, so
where do you think is the best location, or maybe your top three locations as far as possible cask sites in San Francisco? Because I only have probably one.
okay, so like with so I guess I started in Golden Gate Park, right?
Hmm.
And the reason I started in Golden Gate Park was because of Matt Sparks.
Yeah.
And I think at that point it was not knowing when I first came into this puzzle. Like he had been out of Golden Gate Park for years,
Hmm.
not knowing that, right? So that's where I started. And the more I looked at the Golden Gate Park, I'm like, this is bullshit. It's not here.
Hmm.
Because I searched that park, I looked at every aspect of that park you could see, you could research, and nothing lined up for me. I even dug there and I was like, I'm just wasting my time here. And I think part of that was everybody was steering towards Golden Gate Park because of the dress in the image, right? Everybody thinks that's that rectangle shape is Golden Gate Park.
It
And
could
the
be.
more I was looking at it, I'm like, this is BS because yes, you have two sides of in the image, the dress, right? The rectangle
Hmm.
match the park. The north and south side of the park are two straight lines, two parallel lines. You look at the west and the south end of the park and you try to match it to the dress, they don't match. So to me, I'm like, this means this is people are misled with this type of thinking because when you look at the shape of the rectangle in the image and you match it up against, an actual map, the bump out doesn't look right on the bottom portion of the dress to the park. I mean, the park is a pretty good bump out where Kezar Stadium is.
Hmm.
It doesn't match for me. So I moved on from Golden Gate Park, and then I walked down towards Aquatic Park,
Nice.
and I know a lot of people like Aquatic Park. There's a lot to like about it, but I moved further off Aquatic Park down to Washington Square.
Okay.
That's where my theory led me in San Francisco.
Okay. I actually don't know anything about that park. I don't know. I don't know. So for me, my money, and maybe there's something else that you found, and because like it's interesting, you said you were in aquatic park and you moved on. I'm still in aquatic park. So what it was there something that you found that made you say, "Fuck
Yeah.
aquatic
So
park, let me move on"? But is there any? Do you think there's still
so
something mentioned in the
here
verse or image that's aquatic park?
I don't think there's anything in there that says aquatic park, only the G and H in the image.
Right.
And so that's kind of what led me to aquatic park. I'm like, okay, enough with the Golden Gate. There's two letters in this image that are spot on matches for an exact spot. So let's go there. So when I got there and knowing that Ghirardelli is right across the street, and not only that, you have the Maritime Museum, which is like right across the street, right? That's part of the park. And to me, if we're looking at the start of that puzzle where it mentions Stonewall's door, the Maritime Museum has a unique stone walls door. And so I thought, well, okay, we've got a G and H, we've got a stone wall that's literally stone. It's completely different than the whole building, so it stands out. I'm like, okay, these are too solid. But after that, I couldn't get an easy path, right? So then I was like, okay, well, what else is in the area that I see that maybe the image is telling us or the verse? Okay, so I look at the hands kind of in the image when I'm there, and I'm looking at a map, and I'm like, well, this the one finger is at a unique angle, right? It's at like a 45-degree angle.
Mm.
And I'm like, well, the only thing that runs 45 degrees in this whole area is Columbus Avenue. I'm like, okay, well, let's look at Columbus Avenue. What's around Columbus Avenue? And then I started taking a look at like, well, okay, if if you look at where Columbus Avenue starts, it's at Bay and I think Bay and Beach. So it starts there. The cable car line runs across Columbus.
Mm.
Um, you're in that line, the Powell Street Mason line, that's the line that runs across Columbus. So of course you have the, what everybody thinks is possibly the cable car under the table, right?
Uh-huh.
So possibly, okay, we're dealing with a cable car. So what lines run in that area? Well, you have the Hyde Street, which dumps into Aquatic Park, or you have the terminal that there's a turnaround at Taylor Street. So I'm like, okay, so now we have two turntables, one in Aquatic Park and one on Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm start looking at that. Okay, how can we get from Taylor Street and beyond? Well, to me, I think that line running north first across, and I know George and his guys have got that portion kind of locked up, but I kind of think that running across, if you look at that cable car line, it starts south, starts at Market, and then it runs north, right?
Mm-hmm.
So running north, to me, from the south position, it kind of indicates to me that it's the Mason line, because you have the finger. But again, these are all theories. These are all my observations. That's what kind of led me in that direction. And then if you take a look at that area in off of Columbus, if you go down the street a little bit, you'll run into Washington Square.
Mm-hmm.
And in that square, this is where it really started to hit home for me a little bit, is that you have GPS coordinations in a geo marker in that park
Hmm.
across the street from a Roman Catholic church. Okay. And so I was looking at that going, okay, well, here we got half the coordinates in Roman numerals. We have a geo marker in the park itself that has coordinates. We have a Roman church within eyesight. I mean, it's literally, across the street. So you got Roman numerals that are part of the coordinates. You have a Roman church. You have GPS coordinates that are in the park. So I'm like, well, it's making some sense. And then, again, it's all theory. But the little things that are in and around that area that kind of tie pretty closely to the image. And I'm not talking about some abstract stuff. I'm talking about, like, you have uh, you have the two triangles, right, on the bottom left-hand corner.
Mm-hmm.
Those two triangles, to me, if we look at all the other symbols, we're given one very, I would say, it's pretty unrecognizable, right? The yin and yang. And the yin and yang represents the elements. And so if we're talking about San Francisco, obviously we're talking about water, and we're also talking about fire. That's part of the history of the city. And so when you look at those two triangles, the up and down, they could represent fire and water, right? Well, in that park, you have uh, the statue of the fireman's monument, right, from Coit, that was bequested to the city. And so you have the word fire right on the monument. And right across that monument, there's a little tiny triangle park that has a pond in it. And so when I was lining up these symbols to the actual location, they fit spot on. Meaning, the fire symbol is pointing up, the water symbol is pointing down. So we have a north and a south position, right?
Mm-hmm. Did you find anything there that you would consider? So you know how we all have the dig spot image thing, the home plate, fencing fixture, so on. Did you find anything there that you think matches
Yes.
that? Okay, that's awesome. So okay, so what do you think Twain's attention is?
Okay, so what the works.
Actually, your mic is something's wrong with it.
What you said?
Something was wrong with your mic. It's a little muffled. No, it's still a little messed up. Take your time. I'm actually gonna pull up San Francisco. Shit. Got too many computers. This is not fun. Transitioned. Jesus Christ, I keep doing this. I'm using the wrong keyboard. Washington. I'm taking a look at Washington Square Park on Google Earth.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. I don't know. It's something got muted or whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So, where was I? I was. Oh, yeah. So you asked about like a marking or something
Mm-hmm.
in the image. So everybody like that window with the bars in the image. I think the bars are the thing you see on site. I mean, again, that's just an idea.
Mm-hmm.
But across the street from Washington Square is a tiny triangle park, and it's encased in a low fence, which is made out of bars. The whole section is green, and it's been green since the 50s. Which, again, looking at the image and looking at the area, you see the three leaves, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you connect the three leaves, they form a triangle. Well, there's a triangle there, and in the triangle, it's painted green. So I was looking at that as far, and here's the catcher for me, is that when you get down to the giant pole, there's only one pole inside that tiny triangle. So it kind of separates it from the rest of the poles around. But going back to Twain's attention, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think the way I interpreted it is that the object, what they're asking for, is separate. It's a separate line, right? So the object of his attention, to me, it's his name. It's Mark Twain, and his name is what? It's
2
it's
fathoms.
yeah, and so it's his pen name. And so when I was looking at that triangle area, I'm like, well, shit, this could be considered a pen because it's enclosed, and not only that, there's two golden bears in that park, in that little triangle. They're like little tiny statues, and they've been there since, I don't know, the 50s, I think. And so now you have two animals inside this triangle. It almost looks like, you're at the zoo or something.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things that I thought, well, this could be. And so that's kind of my theory on San Francisco.
That's interesting. I have to look into this one.
Yeah, it's not well published. I mean, I posted it years ago, and nobody really wanted to discuss it. Nobody really wanted to talk about it because it wasn't in the norm, right?
Yeah. It's not Golden Gate Park. It doesn't matter, dude.
Right. Yeah. So, and then my other one is New York. I've been to Milwaukee, but that's the only other Cask City I've been to. I haven't been to New York, but I do like the connection between the two.
Definitely. So okay. So I'll say that for San Francisco, and again, I have never been to San Francisco. I have very little information on San Francisco, but maybe that's
Yeah.
better. You know what I mean? I don't know. But for San Francisco, I never thought it was Golden Gate Park. Not once. I was never
Yeah.
convinced, even back then before the Boston style, I was never convinced that you would think it's Golden Gate Park simply because of the shape of her dress. I found, even when I did research Golden Gate Park, I found very little connection to the immigration. There's no like, there was like one or two
Correct.
Chinese, there's like a Chinese heritage museum, I think. Um,
Correct.
yeah, but there wasn't anything that like stood out, especially in the way that I thought it would have been.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, like there's just not a lot here. The verse doesn't, for me, nothing in that verse matches there. It
Yeah.
just
No.
it doesn't. So I went to Aquatic Park, and Aquatic Park literally for me has everything in the verse that's necessary. So I would agree, and at first I didn't agree to this, but the verse usually says something that's in the image. So that one
Yeah.
clue would be like, for instance, the window. What was the Roanoke one? Is the window something about the window? I forgot the
In
quote.
in in the verse?
Yeah, there's something in that verse that says the land by the window. I think it is.
No, I think that's. I want to say. I think that's a different verse.
Yeah, I'm
I
so
think that's
confused.
the Roanoke. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. In Roanoke, where they had the window, the land of the window, whatever it was, obviously, like that connects to the
Oh yeah.
image in
Yeah.
the sense that
Yeah.
there's a window there, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So, I think for the San Francisco puzzle, um, the air smells sweet is probably to the GH, to meaning the Ghirardelli chocolate factory, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The high poster three, some people could debate this and it really wouldn't matter to me because I know there's that famous high street, the three pole thing where it has the high street sign on it, I think it is, or something like that, that's right next to the bay. But there's also a ship there that has three giant masses that are
Yeah.
sticking out. So I was like, okay, that fits. Twain's attention, I thought of the same way that you're thinking. It's 2 fathoms. Now the 2 fathoms is important only because like, what's Twain's attention would be steamboats. He based his pen name off of steamboats. He wrote a lot
Yeah.
of books about it. That was his thing. That was like the thing he was most attracted to. So I was like, okay, well there's a steamboat that's right there next to the three poles. So I was like, all right,
Right.
so that makes sense. I think the only part of this verse, so the first north but first across, I think that has to do with the trolley, but I don't know how.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And I thought about the same thing. Maybe the route, maybe it goes first and then it goes across. Maybe it's something in that way. I don't really know.
Yeah.
Stonewall's door is a little bit difficult, but at the same time, it's not because there's a lot of retaining walls there. There's a lot
Right.
of
Right.
retaining seawalls there. Now, which one is a problem? So I've never
Yeah.
like fully ever even thought that I had a dig spot. I think the closest I had to a dig spot that there's a retaining seawall there that also has like these acorn figures on it. And I was like, that kind of looks like something in the image, so maybe. But
Yeah.
I was never really like I never really had a theory that I was like, oh yeah, this one is definitely it. I just always thought aquatic park had a lot of the elements needed. Not that it necessarily has to be there. It could first north, but then across could mean you have to take the trolley. So I don't really know. Like this one is a little. That's where I'm a little rusty and like I can't really figure that out. That went out.
Yeah.
The,
It's kind of like, well, I think if anything, I think the puzzle starts there. I mean, if we're not talking about the Fairmont, if that's the theory, I think it starts in that area. I can't see how it's not given the G and the H.
yeah.
you know. But it's an interesting point that you brought up about the trolley and the north thing. You know, the words in the verse kind of clue you in. And there's two words, and one is in San Francisco and one's in New York, and I think they really resonate to a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like in San Francisco, the word running, right?
Yeah,
That's used in route buses. You know, the bus is running late today. The trolley's running on
that's a
this
good
time.
point. Yeah.
It, it's a common term that's used for that type of transportation. So I'm thinking that that line has to, cross this image with the cable car. It's got to be some type of transportation line. That's what I think. But then I look at the New York verse, and there's one word in that I'm like, okay, well, it kind of makes sense. Like the word cars, right? People think, oh, it's automobile. I'm not quite sure it's automobile because that's too generic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think you have two options when you speak of cars. It's either the subway or it's the roller coasters, because the roller coasters, the whatever they're called, the cold cars, right? They're all abound.
Mm-hmm.
They're abound together, car after car after car. And here's something crazy. So when I was doing some research about Coney Island, I came upon, I don't know if you've ever heard about this, about the Coney Island Project. It's a website, and it has all these old timers on there talking about Coney Island in the day, how they used to bark at people. And the one thing that kept being repeated was the word cars for the roller coasters. And I was like, that kind of resonates, as if you were in that area, you would kind of gravitate, I guess, towards maybe the roller coasters, the subways basically right across the street. So to me, those two key words played a little bit of my direction of how I looked at it.
So New York, New York is going to be a very difficult discussion because this, I have religious beliefs on this one. Like I'm so dug in my position that I don't know how anybody can convince me otherwise. It's gonna be
Yeah,
that difficult. Um,
yeah.
I'll say this though, like for the verses, there's a lot of lines in every verse that can match to any point in the earth.
Oh,
And
yeah.
right, so like those I try to ignore, especially at first. Like once you got the concrete stuff down and you got a location, and then those things match, then it's like a little bit better system of doing things.
Right.
Um, for New York, man, New York, I dug in Central Park. I dug in the Polo Grounds, which is the first baseball field in the first Major League Baseball field in New York.
Yeah.
When it was the New York Giants. And now that's a very bad neighborhood. It's like ranked the top, one of the top 10 worst neighborhoods in New York City, and that's saying a lot. That was the worst thing I've ever done. I almost got killed by a dog.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
it was such a horrible. I literally have pictures of it because I brought other treasure hunters there, and so what ended up
Uh,
happening is when we got to the site where I thought we were going to dig, and we did dig there, by the way. But when we got there, there was literally a crime scene where there was like a pool of blood, a
oh,
pool
geez.
of blood in dirt. So it's like the dirt absorbed most of the blood, but then there was still more blood. There was a
Oh my
broken
goodness.
camera, a condom, and crack. And I'm like,
Okay, solve that.
yeah,
It's kind of like the secret.
yeah. I swear to God, if one of them would have been like, maybe JJP left this as, I would have been like, dude, you're gonna get buried with all this object. What?
Yeah.
But no,
Oh,
and the psychotic part was we still dug. So
yeah. Well, that's the drive. That's what this puzzle does to you.
no, it makes you. This is like when people talk about like the gold rush and how gold miners used to get very obsessed and like
Oh,
they used
it's
to kill
insane.
themselves. Um, Yeah, so it's like I've been to a lot of places digging. I thought of Battery Park. Um, whew, I think that was probably the list of the places that I thought. So the first place that I did think was Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. I thought John Jones, what is it? John Paul Jones Park, which is called Cannonball Park, which is underneath the
Yeah.
Verrazano Bridge. And I don't know what initially brought us to the Verrazano Bridge, but we thought of it was probably the Arc. I don't know. I don't remember that far back. This was 7 years ago, and I never thought it was. Then after that, I kind of just dismissed it. I didn't think it was in that park, especially. There was nothing really significant in that park. It's a little run down. There's nothing there that like tells you cannonballs or like it just didn't
Yeah.
work. So I moved on to other things, and then someone brought me back to Bay Ridge, and their theory was there's something called the Dewey Monument in a part of the park in Shore Road. It's called Old Glory. It's called Old Glory
Yeah.
Lookout. Now they were trying to convince me the hymn of hard word was this guy Dewey. I think it's Dewey or no, it's Pedersen. It was somebody. So the monument is meant for one of the soldiers of World War II that died aboard one of the famous Navy vessels that got sunk during that time, and he was from that area. So they made this monument. They erected this monument for him, dedicated to him. And my problem was that in all these verses, this is like a big red flag. None of these verses has anything to do with like a local hero. We're all using Lincoln. We
Right.
revere. We're using
Right.
like famous figures. Like this is
Well, it's everything from history. I mean, if you
yeah,
look at it, it's pulling everything you would have learned in class in seventh grade, eighth grade, high school, whatever. It's not crazy random like, the mayor of, Wabasha. It's his historical, and same with these cities. If you even look at the cities, these cities that he picked are historically in our education books when we were in school, learned about every single one of them. You learned about the other cities, but these cities had actual, history to the United States. It helped build the United States. So why wouldn't you use that?
exactly. Yeah, I agree 100%. Um,
Yeah.
so like that was
Hey,
a
dude.
that was a red
I,
flag for me, like right off the back. But like, so the reason why Bay Ridge is so popular, and there's probably more theories about Bay Ridge than any other place in New York at this point, is that what got me to Bay Ridge organically was that I started off with like the strongest part of the verse, the thing that gives you direction, which I think you did in San Francisco, is north. Gaze
yeah.
north towards the Isle of B. So if you knew what the Isle of B was, you just had to go south, and then you would already be in the neighborhood. It's that simple. Like
Right, right.
those two verse lines literally eliminate four boroughs, no, three boroughs, and a lot of different parks and neighborhoods and whatever. So I was like, okay, Isle of B, unless you want to be one of these people that changes the word Isle to Aisle.
Right.
If you want to get that technical, that's really on you. I'm not even gonna entertain it. I'm not gonna tell you why I don't entertain it. I think most people know. Isle has to be a small land surrounded by water, and B
Correct.
is obviously the letter B, and it's a name, it's a proper noun. So we're looking for a little small island that starts with the letter B. And at first, you're not gonna find that because it's historic. I mean, like if you looked at places, little islands in around New York City that start with B, you get probably Blackwell Island, Brother Island, uh,
Yeah.
Belmont Island. You get all these ones. Some of them are islands. They're not little. They're very big. So
Right.
that kind of discredits them. Brother Island is where Rikers is. I don't think the treasure's going to be next to a jail. I don't think that has a nice commentation towards the theme of immigration. I don't think that's what they're talking about. So
Yeah.
your process of elimination, and I mean, God, you have to be dense not to include Bedloe Island or Ellis Island into this equation because they're the most famous. If we're talking about a story about immigration, how would you not talk
Oh,
about
yeah.
those two places, right?
Well, I mean, like you said, you posted the bird. That's a spot on match.
Yeah.
Like that's just represents, that has to be. There's So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And
So,
hey,
so
dude, I gotta run. But it was good talking to you. We'll definitely continue this.
no doubt, man. Like, well, I'm gonna keep these channels open, so like anytime that people want to come in there and there's somebody there, like you guys can have a conversation. Uh,
Yeah,
we'll do streams and all that stuff later, especially when we get into the book.
yeah. I think I'll try to work on something about the beginning of the book. Maybe I'll put like some points together. So if we do get together and we want to talk about it, we can try to stick to a format.
Yeah.
This way we don't get crazy, off topic. But I'll see what I can come up with.
Yeah, no doubt. I'll try to do the same. We'll probably schedule something for like Saturday, whether it's the morning or like late evening.
Yeah, that's cool.
All right, brother. I'll see you later.
All right, take care.